It's 6:30, so we will call this meeting to order. Dana is going to be late for my board. We call this meeting to order. The joint meeting of the Village of Ortonville Council and the Grand Township Board. We want to rest in the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I know.
De Palma is absent. Scott?
Here.
Marshall?
Here.
Monroe?
Here.
Thurman? Here. Blair? Here. Rumble?
Here.
All right, Jenna, please. Dylas, with notice. George,
Here.
Green,
Here.
Hayden,
Here.
Nivell,
Here.
Randazzo, with notice. Bryce,
Here.
All right, we are looking for a motion to approve the agenda. Kathy, do you support that? Did you say support?
Support.
Oh, I thought you did. No, support.
I did, but
Support anyway. All right, now good. All right, so we have a motion by Bob, supported by Kathy, to approve the agenda for the township. Actually, we can do that. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries.
thank you. And for the Village of Ortonville, we're looking for approval of the agenda, please.
I make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Trustee Green, support.
Thank you. Motion on the table by Trustee Hayden, supported by Trustee Green. Questions, comments? All right. We are ready for a vote, please. We are not Zoom.
No.
Okay. So, all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? And that motion carries 5-0. Thank you.
Okay. So we'll give it right here. We don't have any correspondence. Any citizen comments? All right, so that's nothing. So we'll move right into the new business, and with that we have the budget approvals, and you want to take that over?
I will take it from here.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you all. Thank you for meeting tonight. Hopefully, it shouldn't take any more than 5 or 6 hours. So it should be pretty quick. All right. So you have a packet in front of you that is our typical budget every year. And I'm working with technology, so hopefully it all goes well. The first thing in your packet is just kind of our map area, our response areas, and what you'll see is Station 1, Station 2, Station 3, and how we back each of those stations. If you have any questions on that, you can always get with me later, or, you know, why is it this area? Typically, we've spent time looking at response, which would be the quicker response from each of our 3 stations. So we're going to get right into our first budget, which is the 205 budget, which is equipment and housing, or abbreviated EH budget. Last year, 2 years ago actually, we started the process of buying the new engine and tanker. We took delivery of that in last year. It was August. So the reason that that picture is on there is you'll see it when we start talking about the 205 budget, is our next set is going to need to be replaced of engine and tanker. The last time when we did this, it was just a little over $1.1 million, or just under $1.1 million. So, here's a list of vehicles that the department has in its fleet. You'll notice that there's 3 engines, 3 tankers. We have several different administrative cars, if you will. We have a shift captain's vehicle, the chief's vehicle. We have a utility vehicle that we use for plowing, a brush pit truck. We have a fire safety house that we use, tech rescue trailer, that type of thing. And our ambulances. When we get to equipment and housing, you'll notice that we have budget justifications. That should answer 95% of what each line item is. If there's something specific that you're looking for, let me know. Yes, Kathy?
Thank you for doing that. I know the township is behind and my fault because I hadn't updated it since 2013, but hopefully, I know I said things to Jason about it. Maybe that's something we can do pretty soon. But it's very helpful because I don't know if everybody understands. It gives you a guideline of what you're spending the money on.
Yep.
So that's important.
Thank you. So I'll cover some of these areas as we start to go through the budget process. The first thing you're going to see is what I call the three mountains. And the reason it's three mountains, if you look at that, that is the graph for our E&H budget. And each one of those peaks is when we have to spend money on 2 new fire trucks. So you'll notice that in 19 we spent money, and then in 23 we'll have to spend money, and then again in 2030 we'll have to replace the final 2 of our fire trucks. Each fire truck is about 25 years old when we go to replace it, some plus minus maybe 1 to 2 years. It's not a city department, so our trucks, we take very good maintenance of them and maintain them very well. And the crews do that. There's a lot of pride that goes into that, if you will. So, with that being said, and then we can start building for the next set of trucks after that, okay? So we'll get into the meat and potatoes. It's really hard to see that, so I'm going to focus on the book at this point. So this is our revenues coming in. Remember, we bumped that up so that we could pay for these trucks in cash. And it's really important because we get a significant discount when we pay cash. Plus, we're not paying interest with taxpayer money. So that's why we have done that. You'll notice that this is just our revenues coming in. We have in here is our MMRMA reimbursements. Nope, I'm sorry, I take that back. Yeah, it is. No, I'm sorry, it is. So I'm still trying to focus on some things here at night, so it's kind of fun. And that's our typical, MMRMA is Michigan Municipal Risk Management Association. It is our risk insurance carrier. And typically we see some kind of dividend setback, if you will, right, that comes back to us. So that's where that goes. So that's what that $20,000 is. Sometimes it's more, sometimes it's less. Yep. Go ahead.
Okay, so on our sheet, I didn't see it up there, but you have highlighted $100,000 coming into the revenues for 2023.
Yep.
And it's coming from the designated?
It's coming from the ambulance fund.
Exactly, because there's nothing in the designated, and I did find it in the ambulance, but it's not categorized under the correct thing because it says it's coming from designated. And then if you go to your ambulance fund, it doesn't show it coming out of ambulance.
It does. It's
But well, it doesn't show it going to 205.
I think it does.
Well, when I looked at it. And I think the numbers for those lines.
Maybe the lines there?
They were used in the past, but I didn't see them on your report, so they might be.
Well, if you go to page 32, and if you look at page 32 at the top, you'll see where it says transfer to E&H 205 for $100,000.
Right.
So it does show it going from 210 to 205.
Okay, so then maybe the point I was just trying to make is the line needs to be changed of where it's coming in. It's not coming in from designated, it's coming in from E&H, from the ambulance. E&H, it's ambulance, right? It should be
Correct.
ambulance,
Right.
not E&H, that's what it was.
So we'll get with the bookkeeper on that.
Yeah,
Dave,
because I
just
see it's
looking-
transferring from designate 250 and not 210, so it's probably just a typo.
It's just a typo. I'm sure it is.
Dave, just
Yes.
looking at this quickly, how are pretty much the 21 department requested budget is really kind of the projected revenues, right?
Correct.
And you're already at those numbers as of July 15th?
July 15th, correct, that is correct.
How is that?
For the tax collection?
Uh-huh.
Because the tax collection is done in the end of December, right?
So that's why
That's
we're already
the winter
there.
tax.
Okay, I got you.
Okay?
Yep.
All right, any other questions on revenues coming in? Okay, so we'll go to expenses. It's good to note that we have no debt outstanding at this point. And we'll get into property maintenance. Property maintenance is for maintaining all of our stations, as well as any maintenance out to the M15 property. We haven't had to do anything out there in years.
We're still in there.
Every once in a while, I'll grab some grass seed and throw it out back there just to keep the soil and erosion from having a problem, but other than that, we're good. There is nothing outstanding there. The maintenance of the stations includes supplies, cleaning supplies, anything that would go along with if we have to clean out, if we have to have a company come in and clean out the gutters, the drain system, that type of thing. Then we talk about fire apparatus. Notice that we don't have any major expenses planned for fire apparatus in '22. We always have a $50,000 that we put in there for apparatus should I need to replace one of these small vehicles. Okay. We also have our equipment maintenance and support repair for our copy machine. If we go to the next page, that's our bank fees. You'll see equipment. Back in 2020, we had to purchase all new turnout gear. So that's where that comes from, if you will. We always have that emergency management disaster fund because everybody always asks, what's that $5,000 for? It's what we have to put into our accounts, and the township does the same thing. So that way, if there ever is a huge disaster, we can say that we have at least earmarked $5,000 for it. So that way, when it goes time to collect FEMA funds down the road, if there's any collection that can be made, we can say that we have exhausted what we put in there for disaster or emergency management. Beyond that, we have computers because of our records maintenance program, which you'll notice that is through Oakland County. They keep track, actually we split it. There's fire records management for Oakland County, and then we also have our ESO, our ambulance billing, and that is done in 210. Records maintenance is just so that we can keep track of all of our records. So every time that they run on a call, that's the report. That's pretty much it in a nutshell for 205. Is there any questions? Okay. Next, we'll get into our operating budget. Our operating budget pays for our personnel, pays for our heating and cooling in our stations, pays for fuel for our vehicles, pays for the oil changes, that type of thing. Before we get to that, I always put a summary in every year. So we have our 2019 summary, just to kind of give you an indication on call volume. That one was at 1,367 calls. It breaks down the different medical types, where the patients were transported to, that type of thing. We do the same thing for 2020. You can see our alarms for 2020 was down a little bit. We have more than made up for that so far this year. And that's not including the recent storm that came through, right? So prior to that, we're on pace for about a 1,470 call volume, which is pretty significant.
Yeah.
If we throw in the storms, you'll see that we are well over, we're going to be well over that probably. So we'll see what happens here. So that gives you 19, 20, and 21 for the first half of the year. Any questions on those graphs or the information that's contained in there? Okay. So our next thing that we talk about is our dispatch contract. Now, the Sheriff's Department does our dispatch for us. They've been doing our dispatch for quite some time. They have been doing it since 2008. The Sheriff's Department does a really good job for us. I'm very happy with them. Is that to say that they're perfect? No. Is that to say we're perfect? No. So there are, occasionally we'll have problems, but we see our dispatch supervisor on a monthly basis at our monthly meetings. So if there's any time that we have an issue, we're able to work those issues out, and they're very receptive, and we've had really good service with them.
Do all communities in this immediate area use the Sheriff's Department?
Yes, because most of them have switched over. Like Oxford, they had their own for a while. They are no longer doing that. They're using the Sheriff's Department as well. Orion Township is using the Sheriff's Department. Actually, I think even the village of Lake Orion may be using the Sheriff's Department. I'm not sure about the police side of things. They may be doing their own, but they're not doing anything else.
Dave,
Go ahead.
well, based on this, the annual fee that they're charging us is not, or monthly fee, however you want to look at it, it's not based on number of calls, right?
It is based on number of calls, but it's based on an average of what those calls are for the previous 3 years.
Because I accept that expenses go up every year, but we've gone from, in 2012, 1,132 calls to 2020, 1,247 calls, not that many more calls, and yet we're nearly doubling costs.
Yep. And that's because salaries have gone up. They've had to hire additional dispatchers because they have more communities that they're trying to dispatch for. And quite frankly, there's nobody else in the game.
Chief, is this part of the contract that ends at the end of the year too, or are these numbers going to go up when they renew their contract as well?
So the dispatch contract is good until 2024.
Okay, so
In 2024, right. The contracts run from April to March.
okay.
So when it comes time for that, we'll have to they'll renegotiate with us. There's not a lot of negotiation that goes on. They look at their budgets and they go, this is what we're gonna need to charge you. Because this is what it costs us to be able to do your dispatch. And that also includes maintaining their dispatch center, all of the different stations for the dispatch centers that they need. If you haven't had an opportunity to look at their dispatch center, and I know right now they don't let anybody in, but previously they would do tours. And if that's something you want to do when they open that back up, I can be more than happy to take you down there. I know they are getting ready to build a new facility. So that is going to be pretty, it's going to be a very large facility, let's put it that way. And it will offer some redundant capabilities as well. So
Where will that be located?
It'll be in Pontiac, down by the courthouse.
It'll be in that complex?
Yeah, it'll be in that
Okay.
complex. It's not going away from that complex.
Okay.
Yeah, no, it'll be built in that complex. I've heard rumors of different places, and honestly, it's a need-to-know basis, and they don't think that I need to know.
All right.
It's staying in body.
There. I didn't even see
I
it.
didn't either.
And like I said, they do a really good job for us, and really there is nobody else that meet their certification requirements. All their dispatchers are very well trained, and they're quite capable of handling multiple calls. They get a little overrun if a storm comes in, I will say that. And that last storm that we had come through, it couldn't have been a little overrun. We were all very busy. I think when I counted for that 48-hour period, we were over 50-some calls in that 48-hour period. And we're small compared to these other agencies around us. And they were slammed. And it got to a point that, we were kind of fielding some of those calls ourselves, because quite honestly, we're dealing with trees down, wires down. They have a lot of other things that they had to deal with at the same time.
Yeah, I was going to ask that. So they're calling you for trees down, not necessarily medical or fire, but...
Right, they're calling for everything. You got to remember,
Okay.
911, right? So I call the 911. There's a tree down. I can't get out of my driveway. Okay, thank you. Give me your address. We'll take it all down, right? Is that an emergency? When you look at the grand scheme of things, probably not right at that moment. But we still need to keep track of it.
Right.
Because at some point, it is going to be an emergency that we need to be able to get into that house, right? That resident. And we had a lot of trees down.
Oh, boy.
I know you're on top of this, but just and maybe you've already kind of answered in a roundabout way, but are other jurisdictions similar to our size paying the same rate?
Yes, they pay by the call line. So Independence, that runs close to 3,000 calls a year, they're paying significantly more than what we're paying. Okay. So if we continue, we have the budget justifications for 206 as well. I won't bore you with all those details at this point, but everything is there. If there is something that, like I said, it'll answer 95% of your questions. If there's something they're missing and you want to ask, by all means. So then the next thing we get into, did he return that bowl with anything in it, or did he take it? Sorry, Greg.
Okay, that was on the sneak right there. That's recorded now, yeah.
All right, let's get back on track. All right, so in our operating budget, this gives you a graph, right, of where we're at. That real bright red line, as indicated in the legend, is our expenditures. So if you look at that, you can see what we have done in the past. We go up and down. It depends on call volume. It depends on insurance. A few of those years we were up because workers' comp insurance money was, we had a couple of claims that cost us money. So we have those different things, and you'll see those different variations. All right, we'll get into the meat and potatoes. Again, I'm going to be working off our sheets, so. But is everybody on page 22 with me?
Yep.
All right, very good. I had to bring up page 22 because Kay has to go in and individually put numbers on each one of these pages because they're used in Excel, and if we try to combine them, because they're all different worksheets, it doesn't like that. So anyways, thank you. So this is our revenues coming in. What we project that revenue to be for 22's budget is based on a $500,000 increase for operating. We're going to go, the suggestion would be, or the request would be, that we go from 3.4 to 3.9. We'll cover why that is important as we go along here. Okay? Any questions on revenue?
For the COVID-19 state and county grants,
Yep.
that is a one-time this year thing? Or
That was a one-time last year.
last year, and that has been paid in full? There's not like a second part coming, or?
Not for these funds.
Okay,
No. This was part of the COVID, and if you look at the COVID-19 grant, we didn't receive that this year. That was supposed to receive last year, but we received it this year in January.
Okay.
January, February. And
That's,
that
I
was
didn't
part
know if they
of
were
a-
paying in parts.
Yeah, and that was part of a PA grant, a public assistance grant that, that they had done. The village received some funds as well. The township received some funds. And then they come back and said, we're gonna give you the rest of your funds.
okay.
And at that point, it was January, February, so that's when we got the rest of it. So then we get into our expenditures. You'll see utilities in there. That's the electric bill, the gas bill, phone bills, that type of thing. And you know, we switched everything to LED lighting a few years ago, and we have definitely seen a savings in our electric bills over that time period. The big thing that helped to save a lot of money was getting natural gas out to Station 3. That was huge. And the power outage that we had out there prior to us getting natural gas, we went through a 1,000 gallon LP tank in 7 days.
Oh,
The guys called and they're like, hey, station's cold. I'm like, okay, it was filled. They're like, yeah, we've got it on generator, right? I'm like, yeah. Wait a minute. Oh yeah, let's call Hamilton's, yep. You need to go back out there and keep that thing filled up. So we're very fortunate that the township was able to do that, so.
You're welcome.
right? It's a good thing.
All right, going from there,
Kathy.
we have our different support, office expenses, that type of thing.
I have a question.
Yes,
So at the top of the page, under physical drug testing and health reimbursement, there was really no activity in 19 and 20, but then the budget for 21 is 12.5 and
Yep.
all the way through, but then there's not even much activity yet in 2021.
right. Well, that's because we want to do physicals for all of our personnel, and I'm getting some pushback on that, so I'm working on it.
Okay, so you're just putting it there for.
As a mark, right, so that I can be able to do that, yep,
Okay.
yep,
I was just trying to figure out how we kept budgeting for it.
That's why.
Okay,
that's why,
thank you.
yep. And there's some concern, I understand, you know, what happens if we get somebody that, you know, that it comes back and says, whoa, you shouldn't be doing this, you know, how do we do that, and what's the methodology that we do that with? What I'm trying to do is come up with something that at least they would get some feedback and go, hey, you know, you're doing really well, or no, there's some issues and you need to work on this. So, we plan on doing something with it in 22.
Just curious, who's giving you the pushback?
Some staff. Okay? And I don't know that I would say pushback as much as I would say concern.
Concerns, yeah.
That's
Yeah,
probably
I
more.
thought that was maybe for new hires, but that is for.
Well, we do also take it out of new hires too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Yep. Okay, any other questions on that page? If not, we'll go to page 24. So we have payroll processing, we have our personal services, attorney bills, attorney fees, all that kind of fun stuff. And that contracted services, then we talk about fire prevention materials. You'll notice that in 2020, we didn't use a lot of fire prevention materials due to
Good.
COVID.
Yeah.
So we're hoping that maybe we'll be able to get back in there at some point, maybe this year, maybe next year. So that's what we have budgeted for. We have different dues and memberships that we are part of. Part of that is our MAVIS division, which is a mutual aid box alarm system. And what happens with that is if it's a monthly thing where the chiefs get together and we have different resources available to us. And of those resources, one is a hazmat team, the other is a tech rescue team, the other part of that is an incident management team, a communication support team, that type of thing. And we use that to help, it's like $3,500, it might be, is it more than that right now? I think it went up a little bit, and I believe we're at the $3,500 mark at this point. Okay.
Chief,
Yes, sir.
I see, I mean, to me, enforcement money set aside seems pretty low. Do we have personnel that do that on duty? So that's why it's so low?
Correct. Correct. Yeah.
Do we have a designated enforcement officer?
We have a fire inspector and the fire chief. So we're the two
Well, at
enforcement.
least one of them's overpaid.
Yeah, that fire inspector, man, I can't believe it. Crazy. Oh, that's not the guy you were talking about. Darn it. So no, we do our enforcement with our on-duty personnel. Now, when I say enforcement, some of that stuff there that we put in for enforcement, that $500, you see the food trucks that are going around, and we put our food sticker on there that says Brandon Fire Department in here. We spend money out of that sometimes. Okay?
The food trucks are well worth it, so keep doing that.
Love those food trucks. Some would say a little too much. All right, uniform purchases, that's for all of our staff. Polos, pants, belts, all that kind of fun stuff. Fuels, gasoline, diesel. Again, we're victim to the market just as much as everybody else. So you plan on, hey, is it going to be, what are the fuel prices going to do next year?
Right.
Right? All right, so this is the real big one. This is on page 25, our wages. And this is the part that costs the most is personnel. And as I have said before, and I'm going to use that same thing, we don't sell widgets, we don't make widgets, so I can't control how much we can charge for a widget. Our service is just that. We're a service, and we have to provide in our personnel. And our personnel are what provide the level of service that you all are very comfortable in having. Or I should say, I hope that you're comfortable in having. I know I have many customer surveys, because we send them out not on every patient, but on a good at least 50 to 75%. And to date, I have 3 that have come back negative. And it could be because of a miscommunication on scene. It could be because they didn't when I say miscommunication, they thought that they were going to go to one place, they ended up having to go somewhere else, and that's because sometimes we're directed to where we have to go. So it depends on the priority of the patient, I will say that. So we have really good PR, and we want to keep that. You'll see that the first line item is our wages. The second line item is that highlighted area on what we want future spending. And what I want to bring up is we need additional personnel. And here's why we need additional personnel. Currently, I have an open position because I have a retiree that recently retired, and we're trying to fill that position. We've had one application picked up from the fire station. I have received 0 returned. Now, granted, they're open until September 13th, but everyone has to come pick up an application from the fire department. I have one. It's not going to a web page and clicking on it and printing it off. I have one application that somebody has picked up and I hope will return. But the issue is that we're seeing the same effects that all the agencies around us are seeing. And that is lack of eligible full-time replacement staff. What I mean by that is that we're an ALS transporting department. So we have medics, right? So they can start IVs, they can shock your heart, they can do a lot of different things, right? But I have staff that are very close to retirement. I have many. And that has me very concerned. There's numerous agencies right now that have a open hiring list. That is very uncommon. Well, it's more common today than what it had been, let's put it that way. When I got into this field in 1987 and got hired in 1990, the number of full-time applicants for any job, thousands, literally, right? They were coming out of everywhere. Everybody was interested in that kind of public safety job, and that even goes for law enforcement. I think Lieutenant Glover will parrot the same thing that I'm saying. They're not finding the staff anymore. So to offset that, I'm trying to figure out a way that we can start growing these candidates in-house. And typically that's what we've been able to do. We've been able to promote from within, from a part-time paid call person to a full-time person. We have 0 right now that are capable because they don't have the paramedic license. Paramedic license is a 2-year program. It's a $5,000 program. It's not cheap. We need to be able to get these people in and get them trained. Well, the other problem is, as I said, it's a 2-year program. It's 2,000 hours. So it's a lot of time that they've got to commit to that. And with family life and dealing with kids and trying to do it with a full-time job, it's just not as easy as it used to be. Let's put it that way. So my thought, my plan, my action for all this is that we would hire 3 at the basic EMT level, which is 1 step below the paramedic level. So it'd be a firefighter EMT, and we would send them to paramedic school. So now they're doing it while they're on duty, right? And they're coming in at a lower grade, at a lower pay, until they get that paramedic. That would give us at least some feeders so that when people retire, then we could do the same thing again. So, give me 1 second. So what that means is as those people, as the individuals that start out as a firefighter EMT, they get their medic, then they're still full-time with us, but then they can take one of those medic spots. And what we would do is hire in somebody else that is just a firefighter EMT, and then start that same process with them, right? And send them to paramedic school. Kathy?
Would they be on the clock while they're going to paramedic school, or would that be in addition to their time at the fire department?
So the way that, and we still have to work out all those details, all right? So this is preliminary at this point. It still would have to have both boards approve at some point at this juncture. What we're looking at doing is we would let them leave on the days that they're on shift and go to the school, and not necessarily have to pay them for the days that they're off shift. We still got to work all that out though. We got to make sure that that is copacetic with the attorney. He doesn't seem to see a problem with it at this point. We'll see how that goes.
But part of the time, or part of their training also includes time spent in an emergency
Correct.
ward also, right?
Right.
So they're not necessarily going to go work the emergency room and come back to their shift.
Well, they
We
could.
expect them to.
Well, they could, because they're working 24-hour shifts. So they could go to
Yep.
the emergency room and then have to come back and work that shift. That is
A
correct.
lot of them, I think, but.
Yeah.
Dave, not all of us have been on your sub-fire board meetings. How are you ensuring, and I'm sure you've thought this through, that we just don't become a training camp where once they get that accreditation, they move on to somewhere else?
So there would have to be a document that they would sign that would guarantee us a few things. One, that they will pass the class and get their state license, okay? Two, that they have to give us 3 years back. If they don't, they gotta pay us back for that class part. I can't go after them for wages, I can't go after them for any of that, but we can go after them for the class part. We've already done that in the past. The problem that we've had in the past is that when we've offered it to paid call staff, then we have to go hunt them down. If they're working for us full-time, it's a little easier, right? Because they got more skin in the game at this point, and we have claws at this point where we can try and retrieve some of that funds.
So we would pay them to go to school.
You got it. While they're on shift,
While
right?
they're on shift.
So they would still do a 24-hour shift, and it depends on the class that they take. So if the class is only meeting Tuesday, Thursdays, then on the Tuesday that they're at shift, they would go to class for if it's in the morning or in the evening, and then they would come back and continue their shift.
So we could be short-handed then if we have calls, or how would that work?
Well, so let me tell you how this works right now. So what we have is we have a paramedic, firefighter, and a paramedic lieutenant at station number 1, okay? Both full-time. Out to station 2, I have a paramedic firefighter out there. We call them engineers now, all right? So, and I keep forgetting that, so I'm sure one of them will be texting at some point. So anyways, so they're engineers at this point because they're medics, right? So out to station 2, we are also using part-time paid call personnel to fill in shifts. So that would give us 4 people during the day, right? Plus, I have a shift captain, so that actually gives me 5. Part of the problem is that paid call shift that we use is not filled 100% of the time. We have many shifts that go open. People get busy, right?
Right.
So what the plan would be is they would be out to station 2, and on the days they're not going to school, they'll have their normal stuff that they have to do, but they can also study. So that would give us 4 24-hour people a day, plus our shift captain, plus I still intend to use those paid call shifts and fill them as much as I can. That gives us 6 people. With 6 people, we can handle 3 of our own medical emergencies. As long as it's not a CPR or something, a major car accident, something like that, right?
Okay, and I just have another question about this. So the more we put through school, are we gonna become medic heavy that are you gonna keep doing everybody through school where we have too many? I know medics are better than just a firefighter, but are we gonna be too heavy, or are you only gonna do what we need?
No, you can never be too heavy in medics. And let me tell you why.
Well, because they cost us more money, doesn't it?
But they do cost us more money, no doubt. But we have people that are leaving as well. We have people we have 3 right now that are eligible for retirement.
That are medics.
Oh,
That are medics.
Okay.
And so we had 1 just leave, we got 2 others. And then right behind that, there's many more within the next 2 to 3 years that are eligible for retirement and can go at any
Are
time.
most of our firefighters medics then?
All of them are medics currently.
Okay,
Even I am.
okay.
You don't want me doing it though.
I also,
You want somebody that's really good.
I also notice in the statistics there that the number of medical calls, the percentage of medical calls seems to increase a little bit year over year, so they're
does.
going up.
It does. Even when the economy slowed down, our call volume was still going up. It was still upticking, right? Everybody was. The sheriff's department was seeing the same thing. Yes, sir.
So you're gonna have these people, you're gonna pay them up front to get trained, is that right? Like you're gonna pay for the class up front.
We're gonna pay for the class up front.
So you're gonna have them sign a document for 3 years.
Yep.
And while they're going to class, you're gonna supplement, you're gonna call somebody else in to supplement the time if there's a call in.
Well, so what we'll do is we'll still operate with our paid call staff.
Okay, you're still gonna be short a man if they go, if you got 2 on the shift.
But there is a chance that during that period of time, but we have paid call staff that I'm hoping that we can still entice to pick up those 24-hour shifts, right? Or 12-hour shifts is what they're doing. They're working 2 12s.
And, you know, Chief, as well as I do, there isn't much allegiance between police and fire anymore. I mean, what I mean is staying with certain departments as much as they used to be.
Oh, I understand that.
So, at 3 years, I get my training, at 2 years, I'm gone. And how are you gonna recoup money, which costs money to recoup money? You forget also the people that you had to backfill and pay that extra.
Yep.
For him to be, him or her to be gone to get trained.
Well,
So without that money, that isn't gonna.
Right, we're not going to backfill them. So when they're not there, they're gonna be gone. But we're gonna have the paid call staff and we'll still have that.
I'm also concerned that if the person gets trained and finds another place with better pay.
So
We're out, instead of, like you said, you wanna keep the talent, why isn't there a 3-year reimbursement program?
So my question to you then is, what do I do?
Like I said, after 3 years or after a certain amount of time, you pay for it to put some skin in the game to stay here, but then reimburse them. Because if they leave, we're out, and trying to recoup that money, it costs money to recoup money like that.
Oh, I understand that.
And that isn't
I've been
gonna
down that road.
Right, yep.
But my question to you is, are you saying that we shouldn't do this, or that we should? And if we shouldn't do it, then what should I do to bring in additional candidates when there are 0 out there right now?
I don't know what we can do to bring anybody into police and fire. For the rest, I was a police officer. I don't know how you get people in. He knows that you mentioned there's thousands. There was 10,500, I remember it said 10,560 people applied for my seat in the academy.
Right.
That's not like that anymore. I still have friends, they have 6 people that apply, 1 person shows up and they go, I'm not really interested, I thought I'd try it.
Right.
I don't know how you're gonna get people in.
I
I'm
think
just
this is a
concerned.
good incentive.
I'm concerned that we're gonna, the person, we've invested it and now the money's gone.
Right, well, and the only thing, so I guess what I was looking at is, how can we
Right.
protect some of our investment? And that is by them signing a 3-year agreement that they have to, after they have their medic license in hand, they have to give us 3 years.
Or at the 3-year mark, we reimburse them for their cost of the class.
Well, they're not gonna, if we put that stipulation on there,
They'll go somewhere else.
they are not gonna pay for that class up front, because that's part of the problem right now.
What is the cost of
Legally,
the
you can
plan?
do that.
It's about $5,000.
I don't think legally you can.
And legally, I think there are some issues because Oxford ran into that problem with the police academy, if I'm not mistaken, where they made them pay up front. Where what I'm saying is not illegal. What I'm saying is, we'll pay for the class up front. You have to sign an agreement that you're willing to stay that amount of time. And then after that, we're even, Steven, and, we figure we get 3 years out of you. Is that fair? I don't know. I really don't. We've got to come up with something to start bringing people in. And I have talked with a lot of our paid call staff that are just EMTs at this point, as well as people outside of our department, and they're like, if you would pay for the paramedic class, I'll go. If I can do it while I'm on duty, I'll go. Because that resolves their full-time job into being the same thing, right? They're not trying to do a full-time job, go to paramedic school, and try to maintain their runs, right? So this is kind of putting everything into one nutshell, if you will.
Well, I don't look at it as we're necessarily losing out, because they're still covering a shift. They're still providing us the manpower.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I don't look at it as we're losing out.
And I hate to say it this way, but we still need them, even if we don't, we're still gonna need that additional person because, as you have pointed out, our pay call staff, I can't, we're getting less and less of them, right? And we're getting less of new people in. We've been fortunate, we grabbed a couple of new people, and actually, there've been some really good responders, and they're probably, some of those are going to be possible candidates for a full-time job. So it's like, now what do we do, right? I'm sorry, Dan.
No, it's okay. So I'm just, since I'm not, fire is not my forte. How long is the school? How many years? Is it
It's about a 2-year program.
It's about a 2-year
Yep.
program, so
Yep.
you're looking at 5 years then, because 2 years are in the program and then 3 years after with us.
That's correct.
And how much does the whole school cost? So the
It's like $4,500, $4,800.
a year or for the 2 years?
For that program, it's that total cost.
And after-
Now, that keeps going up, I will tell you that.
Right, well, yeah, like anything. And then after they finish the school, how long, what do they have to do to become certified? Does it just go to school or does it go to school and get so many hours?
So they gotta do school in so many hours, that's part of that 2,000 hours, right? They have to have 600 hours in the emergency field.
Okay.
All right, so the clinical environment, right?
Okay.
So they'll have to go to the hospital, they have to do some clinicals in the hospital, they'll have to do clinicals ride along in the ambulance. Now, some of that they can do in our department, some, the state still requires them, they have to go elsewhere. So there's different, they'll have to ride with a private ambulance company or something like that.
Right. Okay, and then, so you're looking, right now you have, as you said, an application out to replace somebody come this September, and then, or whenever, but it's due September. And then you want to do 3 more on top of that. So really you're looking at 4, but one's just a replacement, so it's 3 more, is that correct?
That is correct. It's only 3 new additional positions.
Okay, then I have one last question. Just curious, I'm just doing the math thing now.
Yep.
In 19, this total of 1.5, how many employees did that cover?
So that covered,
I don't care if they're full-time or part-time, just on average.
well,
Oh, you can
it
do
is,
full-time, part-time. Okay.
it's important.
Okay,
Because the biggest expense, what you're looking at right here is full-time. That's
Yes,
not pay call.
benefit.
okay.
There's no pay call in here whatsoever.
Okay, so of that 1.5, how many is that?
So in 2019, we had, Expenditures 12, we had 12 shifts, no, we had 4, right? So it would be, no, that's right. 4 times 3 is 12. So we had 12 duty personnel, 24-hour duty personnel,
Okay,
and a EMS coordinator and myself.
so 14. Okay, and then same question for 2021 and then 20.
It's the same right now, that hasn't changed.
Okay,
And then 2022,
is where you're at.
it will add 3.
So it'd be 7, 4, 12, 7.
Correct.
Okay, I'm just trying to get a feel of
Yep,
what it is per
yep.
person, trying to do that.
Yep, I understand.
And I don't mean, I know we kind of talked some about this, but in the meeting now, I'm seeing numbers.
Yep, I understand.
And it's like, it's like-
I'm sorry, I know there's a lot of people got questions, so.
That's right. I don't have a question. I wanted to just commend you somewhat because we have to think outside of the box anymore. Things are not as they ever were. I mean, and they are not going back. So I think that's a great idea. And, you know, I remember when I worked, quite a few years ago, but I remember when I worked and we would pay people to go to college. So I don't see this as much different than that. Yet we're getting, you know, a little work out of them at the same time. And I remember back 20-some years ago when you were just starting out, and I remember that.
Has it been that long?
It's been a while. But the amount of time it took for you and staff to get to the
Right.
emergency was like between 2 and 4 minutes. And now I see this year it's up to 7. If you had more people, that would probably help get to the places quicker.
Well,
Similar.
So what I will say with that, not necessarily, because the reason that we're at 6 minutes is that looks at everything.
Right.
Okay.
So it even looks at non-emergency calls or lower priority calls that we don't necessarily run licensed sirens to anymore.
All right.
But will it help when we have additional staff with us? Absolutely. Because right now, prior to this, we would send people in as one person, right? So they would drive the ambulance, get out, grab all the gear, and run into the house to figure out what's going on. And we were hoping that we would have paid on-call staff show up. And they did. And at that point, we had about 31, I think was our highest that we've ever had in paid on-call. We're down to 17. To answer your question, what you had asked earlier, different budget, but we're down to about 17. Previously, when we had those 30-some, a lot of them were GM employees. So we had first shift, second shift, third shift, so we had a lot of different availability, right? Now everybody's working day jobs. It's quite uncommon to see anybody working a third shift job. So that creates other problems, because that means they're not available during the daytime. You know, and again, trying to schedule additional people for when we have our heavy run days, you know, is kind of difficult, because I never know when, you know, I may need to call 911 because I'm having chest pains, right? But thank you, I appreciate it. And I look at it the same way. I look at it as, this is kind of a technical trade school type thing. You can go, and here's the unfortunate part, is the state is starting to push that they want to require a 4-year degree for paramedics.
Oh.
And if they do that,
Oh, boy.
if they do that, they're doing nothing more than holding the gun to our head, because I don't know how I don't know how fire EMS services or EMS services in general are going to be able to maintain that. There's private ambulance companies today that don't have enough paramedics, and they're trying to do the same thing. I know MedStar, they're paying them a stipend. We'll pay you up front, we'll pay for the course, we'll send you to school, what else do you want? I'd like a special lunchbox. We'll buy you that. Is there anything else that I can buy you? You know?
I'll tell you, Chief, that was common practice for me after law school. Almost every law firm out there pays for your bar exam and pays you to study for your bar exam.
Yeah.
Yep.
I got paid 2 months' salary and they paid for my bar exam, and I did nothing but study for 2
I
months.
need to go back and talk to my own CPA. I didn't get paid to study.
I mean, I got paid almost 10
I
grand
got
for 2
paid if
months.
I went for my
To study.
master's. But now I do, I
20
wonder
years
if they're
ago.
doing that with my nephew, but I got paid to study.
I'm sorry.
For classes.
Tanya, I wasn't ignoring
No,
you.
that's okay. We're bouncing back and forth. I have some thoughts. We already went from a 9 to a 12 staff change.
Yep.
You knew what you're doing, you did it well, you were successful. You're asking to do it again. It went well.
Thank you.
I think I see similar training requirements in the past. You're changing it a little bit, but you've done this before where you said, hey, you know, you pay for the class you pass, you get reimbursed, or we pay for the class you don't pass. So you've done all this before.
Yep.
Similar,
Yep.
like you said. Some
Very
tweaks.
similar, yep.
We need more staff.
We do.
It's not a choice.
Right.
We need more staff.
Yeah,
Right.
bottom line.
I see this similar parallel to a paid internship. It happens everywhere.
It is.
Yes.
You're going to pay me and I'm also going to school, or I'm getting
Tuition
training through you.
reimbursement plan.
And to me, I think
Yep.
this is huge for the department. You see their worth ethics and their abilities.
Correct.
And you can say, hey, I would love to keep you, or thank you very much, we've had a great time.
Right.
I can call another department and I can ask very restricted questions to find out if I want you. I've spent 2 years with you.
Right.
We know if we're a good fit or not. I don't
Correct.
see a problem at all in this. I mean, I get that we have some amazing questions, but to me, you know what you're doing, you've done it before successful, you've never failed.
Well,
So
I appreciate that.
I am excited, and I like that you tweak it along the way when you see these little changes that might work. And I think, like Jason said, I mean, McDonald's is offering $2,000 bonuses. I think we can pay someone to go to class for 2 years. I think we have to realize the benefits we will receive in doing this, not
We have
what
to
it's maybe.
keep up with
So,
the
to
others
me-
that are offering things.
Thank you.
We have to try.
Yep.
Just an observation, I know in the private, I don't know how it is in public emergency response, but I know in the private sector, a lot of companies, if they invest in their employees, similar to what you're proposing there, generally they have higher retention rates. So companies that invest in their employees and take the time and spend the money to invest in their employees and build their knowledge and their skills generally have better retention. And I'm hoping that that will be a result of this type of program.
I hope so too. I really do.
Would the pay call go down then too?
Well, unfortunately, that's who we're picking from, right? But my intent is I want to still continue bringing in paid on-call personnel, right? And that they'll know that, hey, if I come in and I start out and I happen to like this, I'll start out as a firefighter EMT, and I really like this, if I stick around long enough, there's a job here.
Yeah.
Right?
And don't get me wrong, I'm not against this, I'm just trying to
And I understand.
I'm just trying to look at the numbers because of what it's gonna cost and what it's gonna do if we do need to increase and stuff like that. So
Right.
that's all I'm trying to understand. I think it's a great idea. I know, when my work said they paid for my master's, I was like, okay,
Right.
I don't think there's any reason to apologize for that, Dana. I
No.
mean, it's gonna be a big mill increase.
Right.
It is.
And
Oh,
you've got a pretty big percentage increase in your wages here.
Right.
Chief, could you provide, because I know you did at the fire board meeting, the average cost per house for the millage increase?
Yes, it was $58 is the average cost that a half mil increase will cost the taxpayer.
A half mil.
Did you take that just into?
We took-
Houses?
So what I did is I got with Bill Thompson,
Okay.
and I said, hey, if we do a half mil increase, what am I looking at here for the average taxpayer? So what he did is he went back through, looked at what our overall average tax roll is on that house and said, it's gonna cost you, it'll cost them $58.
So that's breaking it by houses, not by resident numbers, by the actual
Right,
homes.
by the actual homes, correct. Yep,
By the parcels.
yep.
So Chief.
Kathy, I know you wanna talk, I've seen your hand up multiple times. That's all right, go ahead.
I have 3 questions, actually. If someone we have to pay up front for the class, right?
Correct.
It's a 2-year class.
Correct.
If they don't work out, say within the first year, do we get reimbursed at all for the class?
That'll be part of the contract.
We get reimbursed from the employee, not?
Correct.
Right?
Not from the school, oh no.
School.
Yeah,
The school's like going to college.
Yes.
And dropping out.
Yep, they
You
don't
paid for
give you
the
your money
class, you're not
back.
gonna get any kind of a refund.
But if the person who decides to do this, you're asking, if the person decides to do this and is failing, then we would have something.
Yes.
Right, yeah, we would have a contract that says, hey, you're not keeping your grades up. I mean, that's part of the contract that we gotta fine tune, right? And make sure that, our labor attorney is on board with it. And I've already had the conversation with Greg Schultz, and he feels that we can do all this, but we need to spend, that's like a cursory inspection at it. And we'll have to spend some money and fine tune our contracts. Stuart Cooney was the last one that wrote it for us, and Greg said there's some things that we need to add to that. So.
Okay. Where on this budget is the paid call getting their wages from?
So that'll be the next page. We're not there yet.
Oh, they're on a different page.
Yeah, we're not there yet.
Okay. Could you go over again? Okay, so we're actually going to hire 4 new employees because one's to replace, right?
So we are only hiring 3, right now we are hiring a replacement,
Right.
okay? Because we had somebody that retired,
Right.
right? So just like when Captain Flood retired at the beginning of the year, we had a in-house candidate that had his firefighter medic. So we were able to promote him up. So that's not really an additional employee. Yes, it's a new hire, but it's not an additional employee. That still kept us at what our minimum was.
Same level.
So this will be in addition to what we currently have.
So
3 additional personnel.
in addition to the one person we're going to hire.
Correct.
Okay, so could you go over again how the placement of these 3 people are going to go as far as what stations? Because I think when I talked to you before, you were talking about still having paid call, doing the fill-in at station.
And I am, and looking at having that pay call person, they would shift to station 3.
So how are the 3 new employees going to fit in as far as their workload?
I'm sorry,
Is one going to station 1 and 2 go to station 2? How? Or
so I think you missed what I said, and that is we have a lieutenant, a full-time lieutenant, and a full-time engineer medic that are at station 1, 24/7. Then we have a engineer medic that's at station 2, 24/7, full-time duty person. And then we have a shift captain that is out station 3, okay? So that's currently what we have, right? So that gives us 2 at station 1, 1 at station 2, 1 at station 3. What we are doing to supplement station 2 is we are currently using our paid call staff to fill in shifts. So what that would do is that would give us a 24-hour person out there when the shifts are full. They're not a full-time person, so they can sign up. Now, the other thing that we have going against us, they can only work 36 hours a week. Anything more than that, they become a full-time employee.
So the 3 people are actually doing one shift? Is that how that works?
What do you mean 3 people are doing one shift? We have 3 different shifts.
Okay.
So that's why we have people doing different, and they rotate. I guess I'm not understanding what you're asking.
Well, the way you schedule your employees is difficult to understand. Given. So these 3 new people, I mean, they can't work a whole shift 24/7, 7 days a week.
No, correct.
That's why
So
it's-
they'll end up,
So does it take 3 people to do a shift for one shift 7 days a week?
it takes 3 people to fit, it would take 3 people to add to one shift, right?
That's-
1 to each shift will give us 5 per shift instead of 4.
So with your A, B, and C, you would add 1 to each shift.
Correct.
Yes, a
Correct.
day, afternoon,
you have-
night.
They're on different days, they work different shifts.
Yeah. That's what
I just want to say, I think this is a great idea. I've had a person who I was in the township and we're running into, we're not looking at the applications. So I think it's great to think outside the box, like, hey, and you said, I think it's great.
Thank you.
So you'd have 2 at 1, 2 at 2, and 1 at 3 then?
Correct, but then we would use the paid call
Right, you would-
at station 3.
You would add the paid calls, so you'd really have 2, 2, and 2.
So that would give us 2, 2, and 2. Correct.
And at station 2, though, it wouldn't be a lieutenant and a medic, it'd just be 2 medics.
It would just be 2 engineer medics.
And then at station 3, it would just be still a shift captain and a,
Right, and I should clarify that, station 2 would only be an engineer medic and a firefighter EMT, because they're not medics yet. right?
correct, but at some point. And then
At
at
some
station
point.
3 would be a shift captain, and what would the other person be?
A paid call filler.
Okay, I'm getting it. Sorry, it's taking me a little, but I'm getting it, understanding.
Kathy, did you have more?
Well, I just wanted to say that that would move our millage rate up to 4.8905 total between E&H and operating. And that's moving it up from 4.3905, which we've had that millage since somewhere between 2012 and 13.
Right, and prior
Up
to
this
that,
point.
right.
Prior to that, it was 3.8905.
Right. And prior to that, because it was reduced in 2008, prior to that, it was at the 4.3905.
Was it 4.3905
Yep.
prior to that?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
And at some point, you may be able to look at reducing the millage at the 205, the E&H budget, once all of our trucks, but we're talking, we're looking into 2030 at that point. I will not be sitting in this chair.
Oh, come
And we
on.
all probably won't be here either.
Larry, I'm sorry.
Okay, we're all talking about what's the cost and all this and everything else to supplement this, but I would like for contrast to hear, if this is not done, what is the impact of quality service and the response times that we can give to the community? Because I think that's what we have to look at, is weigh what benefits are we get, or what is the negative impact if we don't do this. So I'd like to hear the negative impact.
Right, so, and I don't want to be the doom and gloom guy or the, hey, I'm trying to scare you, because that's not it. If we cannot hire paramedics to replace paramedics that are leaving, then we get to a point where we have no paramedics. And if we have no paramedics, then I cannot run ALS transport.
Right.
So then what would end up happening is we'd have to look at going to a BLS transport. So what that means for the person at home, you're having a heart attack. I can't start an IV. I cannot pace your heart. I can hook up an AED to you. And when you finally go into a rhythm that we can shock, I can push that button to shock you, but that's about all I'm going to be able to do, right? If they're just an EMT. So at some point, we are going to run out of these medics. The other issue is that as we lose these medics and we have to create just BLS units and only have one ALS unit in the township, which we can do, but the issue then becomes, then when that second medical comes in, I only have a BLS unit, and they may not be able to perform the cardiac stuff that you need done, right? So then the real crutch of all this is hope that you're the first one that calls 911 and not the second individual, right? I make light of that, but unfortunately, that's the case if we don't see trends change. And I think law enforcement's going to see the same thing. If they can't find new hires to come out onto the road, what do? At some point, you got to go, okay, well, then we're going to have to go with less people, and we'll see what happens. You know, instead we'll start stacking calls if you don't have enough police officers. And this is the same way. I mean, we don't want to get into call stacking. Now, the other problem that we have is, yes, we have a really good mutual aid with our neighboring partners, but mutual aid has to go both ways.
Right.
We have to be able to reciprocate that mutual aid back to them. And if we don't have units available, if we can't take care of our own calls, how the heck are we going to try and take care of somebody else's call? And if they're seeing the same thing, which they are, then what do? Right? So I mean, that's the doom and gloom of it, if you will, is if we don't have enough of these individuals, then we're going to have to figure out what we do. Do we not respond to calls? Do we lower our level of service, throw them in the back of the ambulance and meet up with a paramedic somewhere? We did that when I first came out of the department. We'd be taking a step back 20 plus years. And I don't think that's what our residents or our citizens or our family members should expect or deserve.
Dave, I don't think there's any question that this is going to pass. We're asking questions because this is a big mill.
No, and I'm not, don't take it that I'm being argumentative, because I'm not. I'm trying to explain to you, Larry asked, what's the bad side, the negative side? This is the negative side. And it's not just a Brandon Fire Department problem. I want to make sure everybody's clear of that. This is a nationwide problem. And honestly, nobody has, I mean, if I had the fix for it and this was the right thing to do, oh, boy, that'd be awesome. I could go out speaking tours.
Can I ask a longer term question? You're doing this because you need to fill in for potential retiring staff.
Yep.
At some point, let's say you go through 2 shifts of these guys where now we've trained up 6 guys.
Yep.
At some point, you're going to have an overage on staff then.
I don't know that we will, because of everybody that has at different levels in their career,
Right.
different years of
Retiring.
service. I think we're going to see this just kind of perpetuate.
Yep.
Now, may there be at some point that we have a couple overlap years? We might have like 5 years where, hey, we're not hiring anybody at this point. Sure. But you also have to remember, we're called Brandon Fire Department. We also need people when we have fires. So by having 6 people, that's also a benefit to us. Am I focusing on the medic portion of this right now? Absolutely, I'm focusing on that, because I need them, I need our medics so that we can treat our residents, but I need the personnel to also be able to put out the fires.
Chief, given a percentage, what percentage of your calls are ambulance and what percentage are fire?
And we're up and around that 80% as
There's
EMS.
that chart.
Right.
There's a chart that shows that in here.
Yeah. Greg?
Hey, Dave, just a comment, I know Steve brought it up. You know, even in law enforcement right now across, and not only, and I'll use Detroit PD as an example, you have to sign a contract with them so that if they put you through their academy, you have to be there for 3 years before you can leave. That trend is going on all across the country, especially like down in Florida, places like that. But I'll also comment that just with your paid on call guys, because when we go out to accident scenes and things like that, even right now, we are having to drive some of these guys to the fire station, bring somebody back to get their equipment because they don't have enough staff showing up on a regular car accident to handle the trucks. And we're having to drive them back and forth just because that's what we do to help these guys out. And they're understaffed.
And I want to say that the sheriff's department, the deputies that we have are very, they work really well with us as being part of the team, because we are. They have our back and we've got theirs.
But it is an issue, there's no question.
And I appreciate
it. And I mean, and the question came up of, what would happen if you didn't have the staff? I can tell you that when we took over the Pontiac Police Department, which was a city that was really understaffed, when they started their shift on a daily basis, there were 30 calls in the hole.
Oh, boy.
30 calls backed up in the city of Pontiac. You can only guess what those kind of calls were. 30 calls deep.
So I think, Scott, one of my questions was kind of like yours about would we be overstaffed, but the way I understood it from Chief was if we do these 3 to fill this hole and get staffed, and then people are going to be retiring, so then the next 3 would go to help replace those because you wouldn't have anybody to move up.
Right.
And then more would be retiring, and if you don't see more retiring, we get caught up, then we might. So there's nobody to replace the one. That's kind of like the issue.
Not
You
internal.
don't have anybody internal to replace this one. And even if you did, you need someone else to replace them.
Well, yeah, I mean, so it's right now, and we've been seeing the trend, and honestly, nobody has got a bulletproof way of fixing this.
Well, I think the issue was it started way before COVID, and then COVID just added to it. Like,
Absolutely.
I think
Because
trend was happening, and then COVID and everything that's happened just made it worse.
Right. I'm sorry.
Where is this an academy and that you go to for this 2-year, or is it like a OCC? Where is this?
So currently it's being done by a Genesis Health Park. They have a training curriculum that they do there. They have I'm trying to think of the correct wording, and right now my
That's all right. Do they have any type of programs that they're instituting for recruiting or for helping areas to fill spots?
So they've been doing that in the private sector for quite some time, and they're finding the same problem.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we just don't have any feeder programs.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just another comment, and I'm not advocating for a millage increase, but it's my understanding we have not had, at least in the village, we have not had a millage increase since 1950. So,
No, that's...
But this is different.
But it is.
It is
But
different, because this
still,
is based on the fire stuff. And
we
did.
need it.
Yeah, and we did, so what I have to say is in 2008, prior to 2008, we were at 4.3905. In 2008, we dropped it $0.5 mil. And then we had to increase that back up over a period of, I think it was 3, so it was in 2010 and then 2012 that put us back to the 4.3905. And we had to do that to pay obligations from things that we did in 2008. And there's no way around that, right? I mean, we just didn't have the funds. 2008 was the market crash, was the housing bust. We lost 47% of our budget. And we did pretty well through that. We were able to maintain the staff that we had. Didn't have to lay anybody off. And I'm doing the same thing here. I'm not going to do this and then have to lay somebody off. Right? I'm doing and again, I know it seems like when you look at it, well, it's dollars and cents, and what's this community paying? What's that? What 1 mil brings Brandon Township is not what 1 mil brings Independence, Orient, Oxford, Groveland. The list goes on and on and on. But, and I appreciate that, but it is, I try to be as conservative as I can.
Since we're talking about the money, it looks like your fund balance is about 50% of your expenditures?
Correct, yep.
Is that about where you want to keep it?
Well, so there was some discussion on where do we want to keep our fund balance, and I think that is something that the township definitely needs to look at as we go down the road. Even by doing what we're doing, I know when we get to the end, which we're not there yet, we're going to be talking about what do those numbers mean and what does it look like and how are we going to do this down the road. So.
The question about it does, and I don't think it applies to salaries, but the ARP money, is that money's
Can't use that for
not
that.
for
No.
salaries, but we
There's-
could use it other places.
There's three things that they can use the ARP money for, and that is infrastructure, infrastructure, no, so it's infrastructure, what was the other?
Broadband.
Broadband.
And
there's
water.
Basically,
Water and sewer.
it's all
Water.
infrastructure type activities.
Okay.
I'm trying. I don't know what else, like I said, I don't know what else to do on that. So, if, the reason I put that in there is this is what we really need to do. If we don't want to do that, then I go back to flipping a coin and waiting to see if I get personnel, right? And see if we can get somebody down the road. But I think this would give us the advantage of getting people inside, and again, knowing their capabilities has a lot. It really does have a lot to say for this. Okay?
Nobody's asked, but the fire authority has recommended these three budgets too, as well to the board. We did vote to recommend that. We did, yes, a couple weeks ago.
Yep. You'll have to do that. Okay, so then we'll move on to page, so everything else in there is the benefit stuff, retirement, healthcare, all that kind of stuff. So then we'll move on to page 26. 26 is for our paid call staff. Again, it's for the alarm pay. You'll see in there that I call it still COVID-19 health services.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
And we went to that because there was a very short period when COVID first came out, nobody would call for anything. And then it was like, what are we gonna do when this starts to pick up? And it did. It really picked up, so. Okay. So anyways, that whole department is for paid call wages. So then we talk about there's dispatch fees. You get to the bottom of that, you're like, oh, chief, you're still in the red. Yep. But we don't typically spend 100% of our budget. Hence the reason that we have the carry forward that we have. I looked at what we would typically spend, included those additional wages and costs for sending people to school. And we might have to take out the $66,458 from our carry forward. So we would take a little bit out every year. And then in 2025, you'll see that we may actually break even and we may actually have money that we can start putting back in, right? So we'll see how that goes. Again, this is all, we're forecasting 3 years out. We're forecasting for what's going to happen next year. We're trying to do the best that we can using the non-crystal ball that we don't have.
But you're also proposing another increase in 2024.
I'm not proposing another increase in 2024.
I have the operating moving up to 4.1.
It could go up to 4.1, yes, but it's not an increase. It would be diverting money from E&H.
Oh, because I have the E&H was the same.
No, it was at 0.7905. So, and it showed on the 205 budget.
I think there was a little mismatch in the years that they went up and down, so
Maybe that's what
that
it is.
might be the question. Is that what you were noticing, Kathy? There's a little mismatch in the years that the NH goes up and down versus the operating? Because they have 21 through 24.
Because of 25, right, if you look at the top of that chart, 25, it goes down to .7905.
Yeah, but you have going from 3.9 to 4.1 in 2024 in the operating budget.
What page are you looking at, Larry?
Page 7 compared to page 21. Because I was wondering that same thing. It seems there's it bumps up by the point.
Yeah, that was supposed to be
2.
25,
Oh.
yeah.
So it's supposed to be 22 through 24 is 3.9, and then
Correct.
25 is the 4.1.
Correct. Sorry about that.
Okay. Then it does add up now.
Thanks, Larry.
Thank you, Larry. Good catch.
Oh, Kathy caught it. I give her that.
No, that's true too.
He just explained it for me.
And that was just I'm sure that was a typo that was overlooked, and I apologize for that. But the numbers are there. Okay?
Okay.
I thought I did. All right. Any other questions, comments? All right. We'll move into our ambulance budget. So 210 is a non-village based budget. 210 is what we collect off EMS billing. As you remember, we remounted Alpha 4 and we purchased Alpha 3, which was a remount as well. So that brings our fleet up to but we've got a few years before I have to worry about changing ambulances again. But those are the vehicles there that we remounted. Any questions?
How are they working out for you?
They're working out really well. So we've had good luck with them so far. So then if you get into the graph or the budget justifications are there as well. So if you have any questions on that, that should answer 95% of it. This is our graph. I'm sorry.
What is a typical ambulance charge of ride to the hospital?
If you're going ALS, it's about $1,000 plus mileage.
Plus mileage.
Give or take a little
Okay.
bit, right? Because they have different levels that they bill at, and our billing company takes care of that for us.
Okay.
Yep. Good question, though. All right. So now we'll get into the potatoes of this. So again, you see the revenue. I will point out, like Kathy had said earlier, that we were taking $100,000 out. And this is actually us putting $100,000 back in. Over the years, you can only see $50,000 in 24 and 25. What I want to say is if I have to take that money out, it's there. I don't think we're going to have to buy those trucks. I think it's going to come in lower than what I'm anticipating, fingers crossed, and that we won't have to touch that $100,000, and it'll be a moot point. But I won't know that until 2022. When it comes this time next year, we'll already have everything planned out and ready to make that purchase come 23. And then it'll take 360 to 415 days to build those 2 fire stations.
Is that common that are other fire departments paying cash for their vehicles?
Some are, some aren't. Some are
Okay.
financing them and paying the finance charge over a 10 to 15-year period. There are some that are leasing, but leasing is a strange animal when it comes to government services.
Okay.
You still end up paying interest on top of it. And at the end of the lease, you own the vehicle. So like a payment plan still. I mean,
Right?
it's still financing there somewhere.
No, I think it's incredible that you pay cash for these. This is like very good CIP planning, and it's very
Well-
thought out and
And what it does is that
Smart.
by paying cash, the last time we saved almost $300,000.
Right.
So if we do that every
And the
time,
interest.
that pays for a fire truck,
yeah.
right? So,
That's why we did that without the three.
correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Because it was quick, it was easy, it was, and we were able to get something now for a lesser
Right.
cost than what was gonna cost me 2 years from now.
I was just gonna say that it looks like your fund balance is almost twice as much as your appropriations.
I'm not there yet, you're ahead of me.
Oh,
But yes, I think you're right.
all right, go ahead.
All right, so then, any questions on revenue? If not, we'll get into the expenditure side of things. The first one is our ambulance expenditures. It's for maintenance of our medical equipment. Is that right? No, that's not right. I'm sorry. It's our billing fees, our stipends that we pay our staff to be paramedic level. It's also for our licensure, our training comes out of there, supplies, that's the big one that comes out of that. And then our computer software and computer hardware to do our patient care reporting, because everything has to be electronic. And then from there, we pay the next department, we pay for the EMS coordinator salary out of that, and their benefits. Any questions on that page? So then we'll go to the next page. There we talk about the equipment and apparatus. The equipment, this is to maintain the equipment that we have, which are our life packs, our cardiac machines that do the chest, do the CPR for us. There's another name for it right now, and I'm right. That's our Lucas devices, but it stands for something more than that. And then apparatus obviously is to pay for apparatus or maintain apparatus. Now you'll see that in there we have $100,000. What we ended up doing with this last ambulance, to what Jason pointed out, is that we had to take a small, we're doing a lease, but it was a very small amount of money that we had to pay for it. Like 10 grand for a 3-year lease. And that got us into the ambulance now. We pay $67,000 roughly per year. Okay? And as Kathy had noted, our appropriations are about equal. They're, we might be a little in the red, but typically we don't always spend everything in that budget as well. But what I want to earmark is that next year, 23, while it's even more, it says 139,000 there. That's if we have to use that $100,000, right? But if we don't have to, then that'll obviously be less.
So then, are you saving up for the next ambulance, and when would you need the next?
Yeah, and right now, that's, we're doing pretty good with that. And the next ambulance would be, well, we have one right now that is if you look at the chart, I think it said 24 is when we have to start looking at it. If it's still doing fine, we may try and push that to 25 or 26.
So by that time, you should be pretty close.
We should do really well on our carry forward. Correct. If we continue at the pace that we're going, yes. Okay. Any questions? I hope I explained everything. It's a complicated process.
Well, being new to the board, you did very good.
Yeah. I agree.
Chief, I just want to say it, you amaze me every time you go through a budget, because you're always right on your budgets, you know all the numbers. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, that's because I have a really good assistant that keeps in charge. She makes sure that I'm on my numbers. 99.5% of the time.
Yeah, this was very well done.
I could not do any of this without her, so.
Perfect. That's
we really
good.
need you.
It's a good team.
You just saved some money.
Right?
All right, so you're looking, Chief, for motions to recommend these to the board for approval, right?
Well, so for the township board, it's always a recommendation for the approval, and I think, Rosalind, you have that exact wording, because I don't recall it right offhand. It should be on the second page at the bottom. And the village is for approval tonight, correct?
But I have one more question, because I don't remember this. When you say $58 per household, is that what we pay to the township, and then the village also pays another $58 per?
No.
It's
No, this is
to
only-
the
This is,
township, that's what I thought.
right, this is straight to the fire, well,
Gotcha.
to the township that gives it to us.
And it's
Gotcha.
not a straight
Right, Scott?
58, it's just
Yes, sir.
But the
Okay.
villages and the township, so they're included in this.
Right.
But it's not a flat 58, it's just on average based
No,
on.
no,
Right,
I know.
right.
I just-
Okay.
For
I just wanna make
my
sure
question
everybody will, like,
purposes.
say,
No.
"Who said it was this?"
Yeah,
They watched the
exactly.
video or something.
It's based on the value of your house, what your
Right,
taxable
right.
value.
Household,
Okay.
yep.
Right, okay.
All right, so we'll do ours first. I'll go ahead and make a motion to recommend the proposed Brandon Fire Department budgets for approval at the 2021 budget appropriation meeting as they were presented. The corrections.
Oh, that should be 2022.
Oh, 2022, sorry.
Support.
So we have a motion and a support. Can we have a roll call, please? It's supported by Bob.
We're gonna go Marshall,
Yes.
Unruh,
Yes.
Thurman,
Yes.
Blair. Yes. Palma,
Yes.
Rumble.
Yes.
Oh. I forgot Rumble.
You know, I am gonna vote yes.
You know, I was trying to pick up rotation, so I do apologize. Rumble.
Yes.
All right, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. And the village is looking to entertain a motion to approve the 2022 Brandon Fire Department budget.
We can't hear you at all.
I said the village is also looking to entertain a motion to approve the 2022 Brandon Fire Department budget.
I make a motion to approve the Brandon Fire Department 2022 proposed budgets as presented.
Support.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Motion on the table by trustee Hayden, supported by trustee Nyla. And there's a budget, so John, could we please have a roll call?
George,
Yes.
Green,
Yes.
Hayden,
Yes.
Nigel,
Yes.
Bryce.
Yes. Thank you, that motion carries 5-0.
All right, that brings us back to citizens' comments. Unless anybody else wants to say something. All right. So that brings my board to adjournment. So looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Daphne, I'll second that. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
And the village is also looking for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Support.
A motion on the table by trustee Green, supported by trustee Nyla. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Motion carries 5-0.